we have a story addressing that. Check this out.
Oh, cool.
This is from NBC News. Gender dysphoria is now covered by disability law, federal court rules.
Good.
The ruling could become a powerful tool to challenge legislation restricting access to medical care and other accommodations for trans people, advocates say. And this pertains to the Fourth Circuit Court, which is Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia, but will inevitably be cited in cases in other states. Now, obviously, this will go to the Supreme Court.
Oh,
it's going to be appealed. The story has to do with prison inmates. I believe this was a transgender. Here we go. They say the decision came in the case of a transgender woman who sued the Fairfax County Sheriff in Virginia for housing her in a jail with men. The decision is not limited to transgender people challenging jail policies, but also applies broadly to all areas of society covered by disability rights law, including employment, government benefits and services, and public accommodations. The decision destigmatized a health condition, gender dysphoria, and it says that what Congress did in 1990 wasn't okay. Now, I can't see this standing because your mental state is not a used in terms of your physical state. So if you are if you are suffering depression, they're not going to be like you can't go to this facility, right? If you are having a mental issue of some sort, or I guess look, with all due respect, they're calling it a disability. It's protected under disability law. Mm-hmm. Your mental state doesn't determine whether or not you go to one facility or another in many circumstances. So this is interesting. I suppose you could argue if someone's mental state was lunacy, psychosis, you would go to a care facility or a hospital instead of a prison. Many people don't. They just go to prison. Many people are clearly unwell, deranged, depressed, or insane, and they don't send them to hospitals. Why would it be now that someone with a mental issue, they could use that to actually affirm that mental issue and be transferred to a separate facility? You see where I'm going with this? Like,
I feel like if this did stand, you would have like jails that were strictly for depressed people, because your mental state is not something that is a fixed feature of your attribute. Like, it doesn't stay the same from day to day. And I wonder if they're trying to push us toward the slippery slope of, your external genitalia is not necessarily consistent with who you really are inside. So I feel like it's just setting a really bad precedent. I do hope it's challenged. I hope it's knocked over altogether.
Well, like here's a question. If I have, what is it called? General body dysmorphic disorder? Yeah. Will they affirm that by amputating?
Amputating your body?
Well, so look, for people who are trans, gender affirming surgery, as it's called, would be the reconstruction, removal of your reproductive organs, and then the cosmetic alteration of them, because you are depressed by it. There's another, I think it's in the DSM-5, I don't know what you call it, disorder, that is body dysmorphic disorder, I think. You want to look that up, because it might be.
I'm looking at the DSM-5. What aspect of it are you
body
looking for?
Dysmorphic disorder. Can you Google that?
Oh, yeah, I'll check it out.
I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong.
That sounds right.
But there are people who like my hand.
Yeah, that is what it's called.
Yeah, like my hand. It's not my hand. I'm like, I need it removed.
Yep.
I
mean, a doctor is not going to cut your hand off.
This is so interesting to me because most people don't know this about J.K. Rowling, but she, under a pseudonym, wrote like a series about a veteran who had lost, the lower half of his leg in the war. And he came back to England, and he was dealing with murderous psychopaths who had body dysmorphic disorder and who wanted to like amputate their hands and whatnot. And he was incensed by this, obviously, because he had an involuntary amputation. He lost a leg in an IED explosion or whatever. So I wonder if that's a little bit off topic, but I wonder if that's contributed to their view of her as a TERF, because she's been like, no, if you want to amputate something, that's not necessarily just something we should accept.
I have no issue with disability law covering this. I get it. It makes sense. The DSM-5 lists it as a disorder, whatever. That's the opinion of the medical experts. And so if someone is experiencing this, then I don't know if that... Does disability law give you guaranteed access to government-funded treatments?
That's what I feel like this might be aiming at, is it's a funding mechanism.
Yeah.
But think about any other I think body dysmorphic disorder is the best analogy, because we are not granting those protections to these people. If we're going to allow individuals to undergo cosmetic surgery and the removal of organs due to a disability, would that not apply to any other disorder? It would. And so I would say that are the prisons now going to have to amputate the arms of individuals who request it? I
Well,
would imagine,
it's-
yes.
Are you saying that it's because it would be doing harm?
I mean, it's a question of, I would say partially, but it's a question of, does the state have to pay for it, right?
Sure. I mean, I think the initial argument for me is it the right thing to do? Like, is what you're doing actually providing a benefit?
I guess the main issue is, are there any other circumstances where you would be housed in a different facility based on your mental state? Like if you were supposed to go to a supermax prison and you said, but I'm depressed by that, I want to go to a low security prison or a prison camp. Would they go, well, we have to. Depression is a disability. I'm pretty sure depression is a disability, right?
I'm not sure. I'll look that up.
I don't know. I'm looking at it now. Let me see.
I want to say yes. I want to say depression
persistent
is definitely,
depressive disorder. Depressive disorders.
Yeah.
Bereavement.
So what if you said, I get anxiety attacks?
Bereavement exclusion. Bereavement is excluded from depression.
What's bereavement?
Bereavement's
It's
like
not.
I'm sad about what happened to me kind of thing.
Sure.
I believe.
What if you said, supermax facilities make me depressed and give me anxiety attacks?
I think that's a form of grief, but I could be wrong. You could argue it's bereavement.
Well, so
But
like,
you're saying this is a step on the road.
well,
towards
how
that?
is then putting a trans person in their biological sex prison not grief, right? They're ruling that if you're male but identify as female, you must be placed in a female prison because of your mental state.
Well, your grief would be over as soon as you're let out, because then you're no longer in prison, right? You'd be grieving because you're in prison.
You're right. So they
Good
can't
point.
lock you up.
That's right.
Wow.
Depression?
Actually, I
Yeah.
think
No, grief is not a disorder.
Oh, okay.
You're allowed to
right,
grieve.
right. But the point is, if so look, what they're saying here is that if you're biologically male, identify as a woman, and go to a male prison, that's a disability discrimination. That's what they're saying.
That's what this article is saying.
If I have persistent depressive disorder caused by being in prison, it's causing me a disability. That's a violation of my rights as a disabled person, right? I should be moved to a different facility to be accommodated for this.
It's really funny how prisoners. Well, we're talking about prisoners' rights. You're here. Maybe you can tell me about this a little bit. You've spent 70, 80 days.
You have none.
You have none.
You have
So,
none.
but they want them. But then I'm thinking about like the horror of war and that, like war prisoners, and like we're in such a luxurious time in history that we're able to kind of demand how we want to be treated in prison. Interesting.
Yeah. It's funny, right?
You can make all the demands you want. I mean, they're not going to help you. Their job is not to help you. Like, I mean, so I didn't really have an opinion on prison ahead of time, but being there, I definitely have an opinion now. My thought was always, well, you did something wrong, so enjoy prison, But I don't think we should make it something you enjoy, though, because the idea should be you don't want to come back here. So making people comfortable and stuff, I mean, it should be uncomfortable, but the psychological side of it, what they do to you, is horrible.
I think it should be rehabilitative. Rehabilitative, is that the word?
Rehabilitative.
The
Yes.
goal should
There
be
you go.
to rehabilitate
There
people.
you go.
Did
Yes.
you?
Yeah, it should. So I read these stories about they put people on an island in Scandinavian countries or whatever. Like if you're a supermax, they put you on an island, and it actually had the most successful rate of reducing recidivism and like reforming people, because you made them responsible for their safety, security, and survival more so than if they were in society.
Well, look
Maybe-
at Australia. I mean, they're doing great.
I mean,
They
look
were,
at that.
yeah,
Look
they're
at
a very
that.
successful penal colony.
Yeah.
And a continent.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the vibe of like isolation while you were? Was it isolative? Because
Yeah, so when you come in, if you're unvaccinated, they have to put you in either the SHU, which is a special housing unit, and I think at one point it was like 21 days, and then they dropped it down to 5 days when I got there. The issue is the unit they put me in, every time someone new came in, it reset the count. So when I first got there, it was me and some older guy, and we chatted for a little bit, but I mean, I'm just trying to keep to myself because all I know of prison is Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile. So, we kept having more and more guys come in, so the unit got more and more crowded. We're sharing less and less showers. Only half the toilets work. It gets uncomfortable. We ended up doing, I think, 17 days before they actually put us in the other units. That was basically general housing. But I can't complain because back when it used to be 2 weeks, it was 2 weeks for 21 days. They had actually an entire unit, and I think there's probably about 100 beds in there, bunk beds, so they can house about 200 people per block. They got to, I think it was 95 people at one point, and they had them housed in there for over 80 days. And you cannot leave that unit. Like, you are stuck there. They bring you sandwiches, and you can't leave.
What were most people in for?
It was kind of all over the place. So in a camp, the only reason you can't be in a camp is if you're it can't be like a violent crime, and you can't be a chomo. So
What's that?
a chomo is a child molester.
Okay.
You can't be that. So
Which is a violent crime.
Which is a violent crime.
Yeah, one of the
Completely
worst.
agree. That, and also it's also for their safety. So most of the chomos are put into low facilities. I know the one I was at, I think the population was something like 80 to 90% all child molesters, which is it's staggering. But I mean, they have their own gang and stuff there. You know, like you don't they
awful, man.
they protect each other. And
Now, for everybody else, what is like financial crimes or what?
financial crimes, a lot of people, shady business dealings and things like that. And a couple people. I mean, I learned about ghost money and ghost drugs. So
Really?
this is let's say you have a large company, right? And again, everything I say came from criminals, so grain of salt. Everyone's innocent in prison. So let's say you have a company and you have someone that it's like they do your business dealings, because you've grown so much. You send someone, they have an illegal conversation about possibly doing something, right? Or let's say you're having a conversation about buying drugs, but there are no drugs. It's not actually happened yet. If two people come together and say he had the intention of doing this, that's a charge.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That is a charge. They call it conspiracy to commit either fraud or conspiracy to do something.
Wow.
So if two inmates, you're saying two inmates tell a guard that a third inmate is said
Oh, no,
something.
this is in the free world. This is out of prison. So the people that were there, right? A lot of them are like a conspiracy to commit mail fraud, conspiracy to do regular fraud and stuff. I mean, I wasn't there long enough to get full details of everything. It was a pretty short stint, but if two people say this guy had an intention to buy drugs or have a shady dealing, and they're CIs for the federal government, they can arrest you on conspiracy.
Yep. So you could be some dumb dude who's sitting playing video games and drinking a beer, and then some guy goes, "Hey man, you know what we should do? We should do this, that, or otherwise, right? You want to do it?" And then you could be like, "Oh yeah, I guess, I don't know, whatever." And like, boom, gotcha.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden someone comes knocks on your door and you're like, "What? Like, what are you talking about? I was just watching Friends reruns."
Okay, so when someone asks you to commit a crime, you say no every time.
Yeah,
Every
but what if you
single
don't
time.
know?
If you do know it's illegal.
Yeah, take a look at marijuana laws across the country. They vary all over. A lot of people don't realize that, like, for instance, in West Virginia it's illegal, in Maryland it's legal. What if someone from lives in Maryland where it's legal, and a CI is like, "Hey, you want to hang out? We're going to the range." And they go to the range, so they drive it to West Virginia, and then they're leaving, and so they're like, "We're going to go chill at my buddy's house," and they go to chill's house, and then someone says, "Hey, you want to bring some of this stuff over to us? That'd be really cool." And they go, "Oh yeah, sure, I guess." Boom, gotcha. Talking about crossing state lines with something illegal or whatever, and they're like, they don't. You might not even know where the state line is.
You said it's called ghost crime?
Ghost drugs. So ghost drugs is a really prominent one in there. So if the drugs were there or not, you still committed the crime. So they can arrest you with no drugs. Just they said they were going to. They showed up to meet to go buy it.
And the other one was ghost. What was the other one? Ghost
It's a conspiracy to commit fraud.
fraud.
And again,
fraud.
I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. I've not studied law, but these are the stories you hear inside. When everyone in prison's innocent, if you ask them, I didn't do it. But the stories you hear, they're tragic. And I mean,
Like what? What's an example?
Well, it's hard. You're not supposed to. When you get out, you're not really supposed to tell people stories and stuff.
Make up a story that's comparable but not related to any actual person. You know what I mean? Like, give us a gist of like what it would be like.
I'm sorry. What's your questioning? I started thinking about something.
I don't want you to spill the beans on anyone's actual life story. So could you make up something that's akin so we understand what it would be like?
Like
what's what's a fictitious example of what a tragic story would be in these circumstances?
So when I was in, I tell you what broke me. Everyone's got a cell phone where I'm at. There's a lot of contraband in there. I mean, people were bringing in like wing house wings at night. They were doing runs. It was absolutely
How? Like guards are bringing it in?
I don't know how that happened. I didn't see anything.
Wings are awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually
It's a
blind in
great
both
barbecue.
eyes and can barely hear. Yeah. Yeah. But there was one guy. I was staying behind reading a book, and I heard a guy singing "Happy Birthday" to like his 3-year-old on a cell phone. He was crying kind of in between, and like that was absolutely tragic to me. And this guy's in for marijuana. You know what I mean?
Wow. I've wanted to put webcams in these prisons for about 15 years. I just even
Violation
if the
of
guards,
rights, people.
If the guards are
Rights.
watching you or anyone have a conversation with their family, I mean, at least they're having a conversation. That's why I asked you about isolation earlier, like psychological isolation.
Well, I know the place I was at used to be a women's camp, And they actually had the ability to FaceTime their families. Like, women have different treatment than the men do in prisons.
Well, that sounds like a Title IX violation.
Yeah, well, the only thing I hate about the last story is that it came out, a couple months late, because I would have much rather preferred going to a women's prison.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.